So Wargaming released a brand new Jagdpanzer 4.5, which is very similar to what we see in the Jagdpanzer 105. However, this is slightly lower alpha damage and is a real monster within World of Tanks console. So let's have a look at what this brand new German tech tree vehicle for Cold War can actually do within the game. And we've got two really nice replays that feature exactly what this tank is all about, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. It is a real treat to actually play, and it was actually, considering I'm not a typical Cold War player, really fun to play all of these new vehicles that they've added into the game. And yeah, that's coming from a die-hard World War II player, so I highly recommend you actually go out and try out these vehicles, especially the low tier ones, as those are the ones that we've tested out so far, and we'll be working our way through to try and give out a couple of tips for these vehicles, as well as not only do they perform really well in the game, but you can also earn a little bit of silver because these typically have pretty good standard rounds for vehicles in Cold War, so you can actually make money playing some of these, and it's not actually bad at all. And it doesn't feel like too much of a grind. Now, this tank is the Jagdpanzer 4.5. It has heat ammunition as your standard round with HEP rounds, or HESH rounds, as they're actually denoted within World of Tanks, as basically HE with higher penetration than the normal rounds. Now we're getting hit from the Centurion 5/1. Now what you'll notice here is that the Jagdpanzer 4.5 seems pretty quick going backwards. That's because this tank actually goes the same speed backwards as it does forwards, which yeah, can be very useful, and I didn't realise just how useful that can be in certain situations. So we'll find that out during this game, and how you can kind of use that to your advantages as well. And it just adds another kind of layer to playing the game. Even if you're not a massive fan of the whole true vision system that we have in Cold War, you can appreciate that this tank is actually one of the more interesting ones, and you can have some fantastic games with it. So straight off the bat, we're kind of playing pretty passively. This tank is not a brawler. It doesn't have a turret, it has no armor, so you have to use it like a tank that doesn't have any armor. So you can see here we're going for some free damage on an M47 that's kind of sat out in the open. Now he knows that we're there. He's using the true vision system to be able to actually see us, because of course you can see tanks whether they're spotted or not, and we can see some rounds coming out of another Jagdpanzer 4.5. So we're going for a bit of damage on him. We're only tracking him because that's the unfortunate thing about heat ammunition, is it does get stopped by tracks. So yeah, it is a bit of a annoyance when it comes to that. But you can see we're kind of pulling back, we're getting out of the way of this guy, and of course keep on switching our location to make it difficult, because he's going to be aiming where we were last spotted, and if we can keep doing that, he's going to keep on missing, whereas we know exactly where he is and we can put in multiple rounds. He of course moved back slightly there, so we put in another one, and there you go, he's down to 295 damage. Now this game is not going particularly well by any means, and so we've got to play quite smart if we want to try and win this game. And maybe we will do that, at least in the beginning, but that may not be the case as we go on throughout this game, and I'm sure you'll enjoy seeing the end of this game for sure. So we've picked up 3000 damage. This tank's very good at being able to do that. It has a 4.4 second reload, which for a tank like this, actually pretty good. This is the Era 1 vehicle, and when you're doing 280 damage per shell, it feels really nice. It is actually one of the more kind of interesting tanks that I've played in Cold War, because of course you can go quite fast backwards. You don't really have this feature in any World War II tank from going forward. And it's kind of the nuances of playing a game mode where Wargaming can experiment, I guess. And I really did enjoy this. We were playing on stream, so some of you may or may not have seen me during the stream, so hopefully you enjoyed that either way. But either way, what we do in this game is essentially set up to defend the cap. Now, a lot of our team are towards the enemy's cap, and so hopefully we'll be able to kind of stop these guys from potentially capping, whilst maybe some of our team go and cap. But actually, to my surprise, they start coming back towards to try and defend the base, which is almost unheard of on World of Tanks. I'm pretty sure you guys know that if you've been following along playing World of Tanks for any length of time, is that teammates don't usually come back to try and defend the back base. They'd rather go and cap. but apparently, given the speed of all of these vehicles in the game, they're actually deciding to come back. So there you go, some free damage into these guys. We're managing to avoid quite a bit of damage, and we just want to basically get rid of as many of these tanks that are trying to cap the base, as yeah, we don't want that base timer ending up at a 0. So with that being said, we put in a couple of rounds to some people using the camo of this tank because it is fantastic, whilst also remaining a little bit kind of passive in our way that we're going in. We don't want to take too much damage. You can see here I'm trying to aim for the enemy tanks, just resetting the cap where we can, but of course not able to do it all of the time, and we're having to rely on some of our teammates here to at least come in and help out with trying to deal with all of these tanks, which appear to be basically the entire enemy team over here, albeit maybe not all of them. But with that being said, we can push towards this SU-12254, who we managed to plop one into, and we can see his lower plate from here in between the building and the ground, which is great, getting some more damage, and we're up to 5.8k damage, which is pretty considerable in this sort of matchup, and we managed to pick up 6,057 total, which is not bad, to be honest. So now what we have to do is decide where on earth is this last vehicle. Now, we saw him at the very beginning of the game in the NM116 Panzerjäger, and that was over basically an F6, and so we have to kind of decide where we want to go from here. And so with that being said, we're kind of looking around trying to figure out where he is. Maybe he's still there, you never really know, and because the Panzerjäger is quite fast, it can go around the battlefield pretty quickly. And when you have that sort of facility, you want to kind of go with the team. You don't want to be singled out and taken out of the game, because, you know, in this sort of matchup, when you're in a non-turreted TD, yeah, that can happen quite quickly. So let's not do that, and hopefully we'll be alright. With a tank that can kind of go this top speed of nearly 80 kilometers an hour, bearing in mind we are going downhill to a degree, but majority of the time you're able to do about 70, whether you're on in reverse mode or whether you're going forward, doesn't matter. So 6,000 damage done, and we're having a pretty solid game. We're primarily focusing on trying to get XP, because at the end of the day you want to win the game and end up with more XP, so I can get towards the next tanks in the tech tree line. We were running 5 times XP boosters just so we can blast through some of these tanks and review them for you guys, as well as give you a idea of whether or not it's actually worth jumping in and trying out some of these tanks, which to all intents and purposes I think is actually worth it. I genuinely didn't think I'd be saying this, but I would recommend actually trying out Cold War and playing some of these tanks, because they are quite nuanced, they're quite new, and they just play slightly differently to how you would normally play a tank like this in Cold War. Now, I try and YOLO this guy, which obviously didn't end up all too well, and we only managed to get one more shell into him, trying to land on him as a bit of a meme, but yeah, unfortunately not looking all too good. But our Jagdpanzer decides to try and YOLO him as well, and now the NM is slowly making his way through the rest of our team, which is not good. We've all managed to throw our hit points against an NM116, but can the T95 E3 actually pull off the win here? Because I certainly don't want to lose, because I YOLO'd in, and we could have more than likely finished that guy off if we all stayed together, but going in one by one, yeah, not a good idea. Either way, the T95 E3 does manage to actually finish him off, and we come away with a win, managing to take him out right there. And there you go, Kogya 3311 tried his best against our team, but ultimately we remain victorious with 6,369 damage, and we made 132,000 silver. And no, we're not using ×2 silver boost. We did complete an operation, but at the end of the day, it was a result that was pretty good. And hopefully that kind of gives you an indication to begin with what this tank can do. But we did just fully upgrade to the top gun on this thing, and so we get better DPM as well as better accuracy. And so let's see whether or not that will actually make a difference when we look to try and play in it as a fully upgraded version of the Kanonen Jagdpanzer 4.5. Our next battle then is on Erlenberg, and as I like to say, it's more Kampenberg than anything else. Especially when you have true vision, where you can basically fire at anyone across the map. So we're going to try and use that to our advantage. So we're going to hightail it directly in front of us, and maybe we can catch people out who try and cross, or maybe we can get a few early game shots onto people. And so that's exactly what we do. We go up towards the house over here, and then yeah, we'll make our way just to protect ourselves a little bit, using the house to block any of those shots. And we're just trying to search for where the enemy team are going to be, and if we can find them, then that's perfect. I see that this thing is blocking our view range, or at least our actual like visibility range. So we get rid of that little piece of fence, and then we find ourselves a lovely FE4005 who's out in the open. And yeah, he's not having the best day so far, but don't worry, because we're finding ourselves even more FE4005s, as you can see directly in front of us. And actually, if I'd realised that I wasn't a complete bot in this game, I could have been loading the Hesh rounds, because that could 100% pen our friend in the FE4005, but I didn't want the extra damage apparently, and so we're only going for the actual damage here. Now, we managed to get quite a few shots in. We haven't taken a shot. It's the first time that we get spotted here, and we find ourselves just trying to finish off this light tank, but unfortunately for us, we don't manage to hit, or at least the shot that we did hit didn't do any damage because it probably hit the tracks. So that's the unfortunate bit about this tank, is once again it has heat rounds, which do feel a little bit annoying when you are playing it, since there is no option for firing AP or APCR or anything like that. So we've got to make use of what we can. We only track the RU there, but we don't even track him, and just trying to get as many of these shots off as possible. We got our friend in the FV, he's back, and he's looking over this way, or at least trying to figure out where he's getting hit from, which is always the bad thing about playing this. And you can see he's aiming at us, but luckily for us, that shell goes flying over the top and it doesn't manage to hit us. But we're up to 2.8k. This game gets really interesting towards the end, because we've got to try and carry in a almost unwinnable situation. Maybe we win, maybe we don't, and so it's definitely one to keep watching with. But with 3,000 damage under our belt, I'm kind of thinking this FE knows where we are, so it's a little bit risky being where we are right now, because you never know, maybe he's got a bit of a brain and he actually hits us with one of those shells. So we need to be quite careful when it comes to where that FE is. It looked like he actually moved position, so that's always not good. And you can see here he is directly in front, back where he was, but on the other side of that rubble pile. And so we need to keep an eye, just making sure to consistently kind of get a few shots in where we can. We hit the TVP there. This FE's probably looking towards us, so let's use that reverse speed, which is almost overpowered in terms of being able to go as fast backwards as forwards. I wouldn't call this tank overpowered, by the way. It's just nice to be able to actually turn faster backwards than forwards. And we find ourselves a nice little FE once again out in the open. He's staying where he is, and he's looking where our position previously was, but I don't think he realises we're actually where we are right now. And here you go, just extra damage. It's never been easier, I don't think, in World of Tanks than this one. But here you go, that's a HE round, or a Hesh round, trying to finish off that FV. We don't want to waste all of our standard rounds at this time, but we're going to kind of move around and just try and figure out if we can find anyone else, because the FV is playing in quite a passive way as he finishes off one of our friends in the Turan 55SH. But we're up to 5k combined. I'm sure if you were trying to go for your marks of excellence, this would probably be able to get 3 marks if you had a game like this, or at least this would be like a 3 mark requirement for damage for sure. And when you reload this fast, it actually feels really, really nice, because you feel like you're constantly doing something and you have something to do, which for a lot of tanks that have these kind of TD playstyles, camo playstyles, they often have quite high alpha damage. And so things like the Turan, for example, in World War II can be one of those where you feel like you're not doing a lot and then you deal a huge amount of damage in one go. Obviously with this sort of thing, you have to kind of rely on keep on firing, so getting into nice positions. You can see me here using the advantage of having true vision, which is getting behind the actual kind of literal physical barriers to avoid being hit by blocking their potential to see me. whilst also getting through that little hay bale crack. So that felt definitely good. But the enemy light tank's just YOLOing in now. This is the Cold War mantra coming in. But with that being said, hopefully we can finish off a couple of them as they come from behind. But I'm just trying to open up the cap circle, figure out where these guys that are trying to cap on their team are, just in case our teammate gets taken out and they end up trying to just cap the game, which we don't want at all. And I know that we could be hitting these guys from behind, but it's just one of those cases of just trying to get rid of the people in front and removing the option for them to cap. You can see there our first shot goes in. There's two people in the cap, and now we really have to deal with these light tanks. So we turn around, put one into him. I load a Hesh round because we should be able to pen the RU surely. Oh no, only we don't pen the SU. And now all of the tanks seem to be hitting me all at once, which is never good. And then we get hit from the hill. We push forward to try and get rid of this RU. Hopefully we'll hit him. No, we don't. He actually crashes, which is super annoying. We put one into the enemy Jagdpanzer 4.5, and something is hitting us from the right. Hopefully we avoid this shell by reversing, and the NM116 gets us again. What a nightmare of a game. And we don't end up winning, but we tried our best towards the end, and it was definitely one of the funner games that I've had, which is saying quite a bit because we've been really enjoying the streaming and everything that we've been doing recently. But yeah, the Jagdpanzer 4.5, a really interesting tank that is super easy to get. It's not expensive to buy with silver, and I would 100% actually try out this tank. Even if you're a World War II player, you'll probably quite enjoy it. And playing Era 1 feels very similar to playing World War II, so it's not a massive leap. There's not a whole lot of missiles or anything like that you have to worry about. It is simply just like your normal kind of high tier vehicles. It just has true vision and more interesting vehicles that you just simply cannot get in World War II. So really do implore you guys to actually go and test it out. Maybe stay away from Era 2 and Era 3 if you don't like the missiles and stuff like that, but for the most part, yeah, a really fun experience, and I give it a thumbs up as a new tech tree line, especially at the lower tiers. And I guess we'll find out towards the higher tiers and Era 3 what these vehicles are all about later on down the line. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Of course, like it if you do, and make sure to join me on the live streams every day for the next 25 days going forward. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.